Welcome back to Fusty Stories. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and get ready for another story you won't forget. Let's dive back to the story. Rita Williams grew up in the serene suburbs of Boston, raised by her widowed mother, Margaret, a retired schoolteacher who instilled in her daughter the value of kindness and perseverance. Unlike most girls her age who fantasize about luxury, Rita dreamed of building a career in architecture, sketching building designs in her notebook late into the night. She had an older brother, Daniel, who served in the Navy and was fiercely protective of her. Rita's life was simple yet fulfilling. Her hobbies included painting, volunteering at local shelters, and tending to her small garden. To her friends, she was the definition of selflessness and grace, always putting others before herself. Yet beneath that calm demeanor was a woman who longed for a love story as extraordinary as the novels she read. Her friendship with Sophia Joshua had begun in college. Sophia, with her bold attitude and sharp wit, had seemed like the perfect companion to Rita's gentle personality. They shared secrets, celebrated birthdays together, and appeared inseparable to the outside world. But what Rita never noticed was that Sophia often compared their lives in silent bitterness. While Rita's modest smile and soft-spoken nature drew admiration from many, Sophia felt overshadowed. To Rita, Sophia was her sister in everything but blood, someone she trusted blindly. It was this blind trust that would one day become her undoing. Desmond Charles came from New York, the son of a hard-working mechanic and a nurse. His childhood was not filled with wealth, but with resilience. From a young age, he was obsessed with solving problems, fixing broken radios, designing makeshift machines, and dreaming of one day creating something lasting. By his mid-20s, he had founded Sudex Company, a startup that specialized in eco-friendly construction materials. His vision was bold: to change how cities were built, using sustainable technology to reduce waste. Though investors initially laughed at him, Desmond's determination soon attracted serious backers, and Sudex grew into a thriving empire. But Desmond's ambition did not harden him into a cold businessman. He was known for his empathy toward employees, often sitting with the interns and asking about their dreams. Yet despite his success, he felt something was missing: a partner who would understand his world beyond boardrooms and balance sheets. His parents, Richard and Ellen Charles, longed for him to settle down, often introducing him to wealthy daughters of friends. But none captured his heart, because Desmond did not just want beauty. He craved loyalty, humility, and genuine affection. His path was destined to cross with Rita, though neither of them yet knew how deeply entwined their fates would become. Sophia Joshua's life was a stark contrast to Rita's. Born into a fractured family, with a father who abandoned them and a mother who drowned herself in alcohol, Sophia grew up feeling invisible. She clawed her way through school, using charm and manipulation to survive. While she had the looks that turned heads tall, with striking features and a confident stride, she carried a deep resentment toward women like Rita, who seemed to have everything without fighting for it. Sophia had dated wealthy men before, but they never stayed, often calling her too calculating. That rejection became fuel for her growing bitterness. Sophia's envy grew unbearable the day Rita introduced her to Desmond. She had expected Rita to fall for a modest man, someone ordinary. Instead, here was a man powerful, brilliant, and devastatingly handsome, who looked at Rita as if she were the only woman alive. What does he see in her? Sophia would whisper to herself at night, tossing and turning with anger. She convinced herself that Rita did not deserve him, and with each passing day, her desire to steal Desmond away transformed into a poisonous obsession. It was at a corporate gala in downtown Boston that Rita and Desmond first met. Rita had attended with Sophia, who insisted they go, hoping to mingle with high-profile businessmen. Rita, in her simple blue evening gown, had not intended to draw attention, but her elegance made her stand out in a room filled with glitter and arrogance. Desmond noticed her while he was speaking with investors. Her quiet smile was unlike the practiced charm of the socialites around him. He walked over, introduced himself, and struck up a conversation about her sketches when she shyly admitted she was an architect in training. Sophia watched this with burning jealousy, though she masked it with laughter and fake encouragement. She tried to insert herself into the conversation, flashing her charm, but Desmond's gaze never strayed from Rita. That night ended with Desmond offering Rita his business card, insisting he would love to hear more about her designs. Rita, flustered, accepted, not realizing that this single meeting would change the course of her life forever and ignite the fury of her so-called best friend. In the weeks that followed, Desmond and Rita grew closer. He invited her to his office, where he marveled at her talent for design. Their relationship blossomed naturally, filled with long walks along Boston Harbor, quiet dinners, and endless conversations about dreams and values. Desmond admired how grounded she was, while Rita was drawn to his mix of strength and gentleness. Daniel, Rita's brother, quickly approved of Desmond, grateful that his sister found a man who respected her. Sophia, however, fumed in silence. She attended double dates with them, pretending to be happy, but every smile she offered was laced with venom. At night, she wrote bitter diary entries about how Rita had stolen what should have been hers. Sophia tried subtle tactics, suggesting other women to Desmond, questioning Rita's dedication, but her schemes failed. The more she tried to sabotage, the stronger Desmond and Rita's bond became. Desmond's proposal was nothing short of magical. He rented a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city skyline and filled it with candles and flowers. With a violinist playing softly in the background, he got down on one knee and asked Rita to marry him. Tears streamed down her face as she said yes, overwhelmed by joy. Desmond slid the diamond ring on her finger, sealing a promise of forever. Sophia clapped and cheered from the sidelines, but her heart was breaking. That night, alone in her apartment, she screamed into her pillow. Her hatred solidified into a chilling thought. If Rita were gone, Desmond would have no choice but to see her. It was in that moment that Sophia's dark plan began to take root. The wedding was grand, held in a beautiful cathedral in Boston, with hundreds of guests in attendance. Rita looked radiant in her lace gown, while Desmond could not take his eyes off her. They exchanged vows that brought tears to everyone, including Daniel and Desmond's parents. Sophia stood beside Rita as maid of honor, delivering a speech that made everyone laugh. Yet behind her smile, she envisioned herself in Rita's place. During the reception, Sophia poured drinks, danced with guests, and hugged Rita tightly. "I'm so happy for you," she whispered, though her heart was anything but. That night, while everyone celebrated love, Sophia secretly vowed that the marriage would not last. The early days of Desmond and Rita's marriage were filled with happiness. They traveled to Paris for their honeymoon, where Desmond surprised Rita with visits to art galleries, knowing her passion for design. They took long evening walks by the Seine, sharing kisses under the Eiffel Tower. Returning home, they settled into a spacious apartment near Boston's financial district, decorating it with Rita's sketches and Desmond's awards. Their life felt like a fairy tale. Meanwhile, Sudek's company began expanding, gaining international contracts. Desmond often came home late, exhausted, but Rita always supported him. They dreamed of starting a family soon, and their love deepened with every passing day. But in the shadows, Sophia was tightening her grip, visiting often under the guise of friendship, secretly studying Rita's routines and habits for the perfect moment to strike. Sophia's envy had now grown into obsession. She began visiting Desmond at his office without Rita's knowledge, pretending to bring him food or dropping by as a friend. Though Desmond treated her kindly, he always spoke fondly of Rita, which only fueled her rage. Sophia even tried to seduce him once, brushing her hand against his arm, but Desmond laughed it off, thinking she was joking. That rejection burned her pride. At the same time, Rita began noticing small oddities. Her drinks tasted slightly bitter sometimes, or she felt faint after Sophia's visits. She dismissed these as stress, unaware that her best friend was experimenting with different ways to poison her. Sophia had already purchased toxic substances, carefully plotting her next move. The day Sophia struck came during a casual afternoon chat at Rita's apartment. She arrived with her usual charm, carrying a basket of fruits and a bottle of wine. As they talked about marriage and life, Sophia discreetly poured a few drops of poison into Rita's glass while pretending to refill it. Rita, trusting as always, took a sip, smiling as she spoke about her plans to surprise Desmond with a family dinner. Within minutes, Rita felt her chest tighten and her vision blur. She collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath. Sophia feigned shock, screaming for help as neighbors rushed in. Desmond, arriving moments later, carried Rita into his arms, his heart racing with terror. He rushed her to the hospital, unaware that the woman he trusted most after his wife had just betrayed them both. At the hospital, chaos erupted as doctors rushed Rita into the emergency ward. Desmond's face was pale, his voice breaking as he begged Dr. John Anderson to save his wife. Dr. John, a seasoned physician with decades of experience, quickly ran tests and identified signs of poisoning. He knew the situation was dire. If the poisoner was still close to Rita, announcing the truth could risk another attempt on her life. In a bold and secretive move, Dr. John decided to place Rita in a medically induced coma while telling everyone, including Desmond, that she had died. His plan was to keep her hidden in a private ward under tight watch while he flushed the toxins from her system. Desmond collapsed on the floor when he heard the word dead. His world shattered instantly. He sobbed uncontrollably, gripping Dr. John's coat, unable to process the loss. Sophia, standing nearby, wore the mask of grief but inwardly trembled with triumph. She held Desmond's hand and whispered words of comfort, pretending to share his pain. The nurses escorted the body to a restricted ward. None but Dr. John knew Rita was still alive, her faint heartbeat steady but fragile, fighting to survive. That night, when the hospital grew quiet, Sophia returned under the pretense of visiting to say goodbye. She slipped into the dimly lit ward where Rita lay motionless, tubes attached to her body. Thinking she was addressing a corpse, Sophia leaned close, her voice dripping with venom. "You thought you were better than me, Rita," she whispered coldly. "But Desmond will be mine now. I poisoned you, and no one will ever suspect me." She laughed softly, reveling in her own cruelty. But what she didn't know was that Rita's mind was awake, though her body was weak. Every word seared into her consciousness. Tears streamed silently down her face, her heart breaking not only from betrayal, but from the cruel realization that her best friend had plotted her death. Sophia, satisfied with her twisted confession, kissed Rita's forehead mockingly and left the room. Rita's fingers twitched faintly, her will to survive ignited by rage and the need for justice. Desmond spent days in despair, locking himself in his study at home. His mother, Ellen, tried to console him, while Daniel, Rita's brother, grieved alongside him. Desmond replayed every moment of his marriage, the laughter, the promises, and the future they never got to build. At night, he wandered into Rita's art studio, staring at unfinished sketches, clutching her shawl to his chest as though it could bring her back. His once ambitious spirit dimmed. He canceled business meetings, neglected Sudek's company, and let the boar handle decisions. Sophia, however, saw his grief as her opportunity. She visited daily, bringing food and forcing smiles, pretending to comfort him. Slowly, she inserted herself into his routine, cooking meals, cleaning his house, and playing the role of the loyal companion. To outsiders, she seemed like an angel supporting a widower, but to herself, she felt victory approaching. Desmond would soon lean on her completely, and then she could take Rita's place. Weeks passed, and Sophia tightened her grip. She accompanied Desmond to board meetings, whispering advice, charming shareholders, and positioning herself as his closest ally. Desmond resisted at first, insisting he needed time to heal, but Sophia's persistence was relentless. She began dressing in Rita's favorite colors, mimicking her style, and pretending to care about his late wife's memory. Her performance fooled many, but Daniel, Rita's brother, was suspicious. He disliked how quickly Sophia had filled the void and questioned her motives. Still, Desmond, lost in grief, allowed Sophia to remain close. She cooked for him, stayed late, and one evening even pretended to cry about losing Rita too. Desmond hugged her absent-mindedly, unaware that she was savoring every moment of his broken state. Sophia knew she needed a bold move to secure her position permanently, and in her mind that meant one thing: marriage. In a shocking twist, Sophia manipulated Desmond into proposing. After weeks of stage vulnerability, she told him through tears that she couldn't bear to lose him too. She pressed on his guilt, reminding him how much she had supported him after Rita's death. Desmond, weak and emotionally exhausted, felt indebted to her loyalty. In a moment of confusion and misplaced gratitude, he asked her to marry him. Sophia's heart soared as she slid the engagement ring onto her finger. She announced it to the world, telling Desmond's family and friends. Though Ellen, Desmond's mother, was hesitant and Daniel outright furious, Desmond silenced him with a broken voice. "Sophia was there when I had no one." Sophia had one, or so she thought. The wedding was scheduled within weeks, the media buzzing with shock at Desmond moving on so quickly. Back at the hospital, Rita's condition improved. Dr. John continued to treat her discreetly, ensuring no news leaked. One evening, Rita's eyes fluttered open, and she gasped for air. Though weak, She remembered every word Sophia had confessed. With trembling hands, she clutched Dr. John's wrist and whispered, "She did this to me. Sophia poisoned me." Dr. John nodded gravely, assuring her that the truth would come out in time. Rita's first thoughts were of Desmond. The image of him weeping at her death haunted her. She burned with anger, but also determination. She would not let Sophia take everything from her. Though her body was frail, her spirit had never been stronger. She asked Dr. John to keep her survival a secret until the right moment. Rita knew the only way to expose Sophia was to let her reveal her true self before everyone. The day of the wedding arrived, grand and luxurious, hosted at one of Boston's most prestigious halls. Guests filled the seats, curious about the controversial union. Desmond, in his suit, looked pale and distant, his eyes betraying sorrow rather than joy. Sophia, dressed in a dazzling white gown, walked confidently down the aisle, beaming as though she had finally conquered the world. The ceremony began with the officiant speaking of love and new beginnings. Sophia squeezed Desmond's hand tightly, smiling smugly at the guests. But just as she prepared to say, "I do," the doors of the hall creaked open. Gasps echoed as Rita, radiant though still weak, stepped inside dressed in a simple cream gown. Her presence was like a ghost returning. All eyes turned in shock, and Sophia's confident smile froze instantly. The hall erupted in chaos. Guests whispered in disbelief, some screaming, others standing in shock. Desmond's eyes widened, his knees nearly giving way as he saw Rita alive. "Rita," he whispered, tears flooding his eyes. Sophia staggered back, trembling, her face draining of color. Rita, with quiet strength, walked down the aisle and faced her former best friend. "I heard everything," she said firmly. "Every word you whispered at my bedside." Sophia stammered, trying to deny it, but her mask cracked under the weight of Rita's steady gaze. The crowd erupted, demanding answers. Daniel lunged forward, his fists clenched, while Ellen cried tears of joy at seeing Rita alive. Desmond, overwhelmed with guilt and relief, fell to his knees, clutching Rita's hands as though afraid to lose her again. Sophia's dream world collapsed in an instant. Police officers, already tipped off by Dr. John, entered the hall. Rita handed them a recording device Dr. John had provided, which captured Sophia's bedside confession. The evidence was undeniable. Sophia screamed, lashing out at Rita, accusing her of ruining everything. But the officers restrained her. The once confident mistress was dragged away in handcuffs, her glamorous dress torn, her dignity gone. Desmond turned to Rita, sobbing apologies, swearing he'd been blinded by grief and manipulation. Rita, though hurt, placed her hand gently on his cheek. "You were broken, Desmond. I don't blame you. But never again will I let anyone stand between us." Their embrace brought the crowd to tears. Sophia's chapter was over, but Rita and Desmond's was just beginning. Weeks later, Rita had fully recovered and returned home with Desmond. Their apartment, once filled with sorrow, now brimmed with laughter again. Desmond devoted himself to rebuilding both their marriage and Sudex company, promising never to take her for granted again. Rita pursued her architecture dreams with renewed passion, designing a new home for them that symbolized strength and survival. Their story became known across the city as one of resilience, betrayal, and love's triumph. Rita and Desmond hosted charity events for hospitals, honoring Dr. John's bravery. Ellen found peace seeing her son and daughter-in-law happy again, while Daniel guarded his sister fiercely, never trusting anyone too quickly again. As for Rita, she knew her life had been scarred but not destroyed. Hand in hand with Desmond, she embraced her second chance at life. Together, they walked into their future, wiser, stronger, and unshakably united. That's all for today. Like, subscribe, and see you in the next episode. Stay tuned.